Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Clodcast, episode 110. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm Andy Lewis.
I'm Sid Gill.
And I'm Rory Summers.
All right, I'm going to start off by apologising.
Why? What have you done?
Been rubbish.
It's
We've
all right.
been rubbish.
Less for the Mr. Tudor.
Well, okay,
You're
I've
going
been
to
rubbish.
apologise for
No,
all of that.
I'm happy to tip up into the rubbish camp with you, Steve.
Because you may have noticed we've been pretty poor on our output lately. You know, our best of 2021, which normally comes out over Christmas, came out like end of January. Our 2022 preview, which usually comes at the first week in January, came out the last week in February.
Okay, you've got a point. Yeah, we should apologise.
Yeah, so we're doing that. Now, there's a few reasons for that, and I think I should briefly explain what's going on. As you might work out, I'm the captain of this ship, which I sometimes think is like the blind leading the stupid, but there you go. And I've had a bit of personal issues over the last couple of months, partly due to taking a hold of getting a new puppy, which was a lot more work than I first thought, and my wife being ill, which meant that the looking after a puppy was even more work than it should have been. This basically means that I've not had a chance to plan episodes, I've not had a chance to edit episodes, so whenever Andy's gone, right, I've played 200 games this last week, who wants to record a podcast? And I've gone, well, you can record one, but I don't know when I'm going to edit it.
It'll be very one-sided.
It's going to be very one-sided because I've not played a board game in 3 months. But we've rectified that. We've played board games now. So,
Hurrah.
yes. I'd also say as well, we had a bit of feedback regarding content, especially due with the preview episode we did last time. And I will say we get this feedback, we get equal amounts from either side. So we had a bit of feedback saying there was too many RPGs in our preview episode. Talk about more board games. And then we also get feedback going, I really love the RPG chat. Talk about more RPGs. And here's how it works. We're going to talk about what we're playing.
Yeah.
It's not complicated, unfortunately. So it just ends up that if we play more board games 1 month, there'll be more board games in the chat. If we play more RPGs, play more RPGs more 1 month, it'll be that. Because when I originally started actually Polyhedron Collider, the blog, I actually intended to talk about what I call the 4 pillars of tabletop gaming. So board games, RPGs, miniatures games, and no. This is it, Andy. Right?
That's the roof. That's the roof on the pillars.
I'm gonna say it's like Creative Chewing from Terry Pratchett, right?
Oh yes.
So the four elephants are board games, card games, miniature games, and RPGs.
Right.
And beer is the giant turtle underneath, which we're all sitting on.
Right.
That's the foundation.
It's the supporting foundation. Yeah.
I can go with that.
So yes. The other reason why I've not had any time is I've started playing Elden Ring. So I've actually managed to claw back some free time now the puppy's getting older, and that has now been taken up by playing Elden Ring. And I'm not kidding. I was about to set up the podcast. I thought, right, I really should go upstairs and set the mic up and set the, because, put some baffling in was what we do, try and reduce the echo. I should really do that. Or I could play Elden Ring for 15 minutes just to see if I can get past that next bit.
Is this why you're late?
Partly.
About 15 minutes turned into 45. Yeah, okay. I see how it works, Tudor.
No. Actually, it was a knock-on effect. By me playing Elden Ring, I didn't do all the other things that I'd forgotten I was supposed to do before the podcast started.
That's like me every morning, trying to get to work. Oh, I could just watch a little bit of Amazon Prime, couldn't I? Nobody will know. I won't be late.
See, remote working, I just have like Netflix on while I'm in meetings. Yeah.
I mean, no, definitely not.
Because I've got my soundbar, so like the meeting is coming out the soundbar, but on the headphones, which they think I'm listening to them, no, I'm watching Netflix.
That is outstanding.
That's
Nice.
so much to learn from you lot, I really do. There's me thinking you got to work and do work.
We do both.
No, I do work. It's just when I get called into these pointless meetings, it's like, well, I'm still halfway through that movie. I'll carry on watching it.
You don't want to be put off your flow after all, do you?
Yeah, multitasking. It's brilliant. Anyway, we have been playing some games.
Well,
Yes.
in the background, while Steve has been shirking his responsibilities for what the pathetic excuses he's come up with this week, some of us have been doing our research and supporting the communities.
I haven't done any of that.
I haven't done any of that.
Well, at least one of us has actually been doing something useful instead of sitting watching Netflix. I have been to Nerdy again because I really like it. It's up in Shrewsbury, and unfortunately, Shrewsbury has a number of entry points for the River Severn. And for those of you who've been watching the weather and caught in it recently, you'll probably have noticed the River Severn expanded somewhat in the last few weeks. And as I live in Bewdley, I experienced that firsthand as well because the river was over 5 metres deep. This time around, people were evacuated from their homes, and it was all good fun. Obviously,
they were actually closing Bewdley off when I left yours that night, Andy.
Yes, exactly. You see, it was basically about to be renamed New Atlantis.
Yeah, I had an extra 10 minutes drive onto my drive home. So driving into Bewdley, and it's like diversion. What the hell? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep, all my roads to work were completely underwater, so I thought I'll stay at home
and watch Netflix.
And well, actually, House on Amazon Prime, but we'll brush over that. And Shrewsbury, unfortunately, is suffers a similar fate, and Nerdy is quite near the river. So for the third time in 2 years, they were flooded out a couple of weeks ago.
I can think of nothing worse for a board game shop.
I know, exactly. Thankfully, they knew it was coming, so now it's happened so many times, they've got it down to this really sleek operation. They can lift the floor up and put it upstairs, and it's a really nice parquet floor, actually. I don't know how they do it. It's not like a roll of lino or anything. It's a really nice floor, and they obviously shift all the board games out of the way. So now they've done it. They've got this sleek operation, but of course it still requires a lot of effort and a lot of clean-up afterwards because obviously it stinks. But having had it now for the third time in 2 years, I think it is, they are running a crowdfunder because they are fed up and they would like people to support the shop. And I thought I'd mention them because I really like Nerdy. We both do, actually, myself and Alora. We are members and we keep going whenever we can. They do very good cake and coffee, so I strongly recommend anyone near Shrewsbury goes along.
And what is the crowdfunding for? Is it to move to a new location, or is it to build some big flood barrier outside the shop?
It's to sleeve all the games.
Just put a Tesco bag around each game and it'll be fine. I think it's just really just to keep to help them basically get back on their feet after suffering this, because obviously I understand in the background there are sort of discussions with the council because there are certain things the council will do and won't do, and so as a business they don't want to go under. So it's really just literally just to support them as a business. Okay. So they're doing T-shirts at the moment, which are all various sort of artistic works around their sort of symbol, which is slightly Cthulhu-esque. But there are quite a few there. They're on Crowdfunder, I think it's called, not Kickstarter. But
they're actually on Crowdfunder. Okay, cool.
Yes, they're on there if you want to have a look. So if you do feel like supporting them, I strongly recommend you do, because they're a good shop. And Sid, you should definitely go and have the nachos that they do. They are basically just soused in a combination of sriracha and chili. They are insanely hot.
Hang on, they let you eat that, and then they let you touch their board games?
Oh, yeah, they give you napkins and wet wipes and things as well.
Oh, right, okay. Wet wipes. Okay, that's okay, fair enough. Allowed.
They're very good. But yes, no, they do excellent food and snacks and coffee. But anyway, so yeah, they're doing a crowdfunder, so I definitely recommend people should check that out and try and support them if they can. Last week, Alora and I went to Bridgenorth to a newer board game cafe called The Boardroom, which I thought I'd give them a mention as well. They're relatively new. I think they've only been going sort of 6 to 12 months or so they're kind of starting out. And there's a really good sort of selection of games in there. Again, it's towards the lighter side because they're sort of obviously trying to attract people in and get people involved. Although there's a whacking great Sandy Peterson game there on the shelf that no one's played yet. It's in a box pretty much the size of Gloomhaven. I just looked at it and went, ooh.
Well, which one's that one?
I can't remember what it's called now.
It's not Cthulhu Wars, is it?
No, it's not that one. But it's huge and it looks fantastic and I really want to play it. But I was banned from even opening the box.
This gives me an idea, though, chaps. You know, considering we all live so far away from each other now, really, that we all have to commute to play games, maybe we should do a little bit of a board game cafe tour of the Midlands.
I think that's a good idea.
So rather than go to Andy's house, we could just do, we'll drive for this far and go to this place.
It's a good shout.
Yeah.
And if we weren't on the train, we could make sure we had the foundations for the 4 pillars upon which the entire hobby is built.
That's an even better idea because the Severn Valley Railway goes directly to Bridgnorth from Bewdley, so that would be very, very simple for me.
Yeah, we'll have a look. I'm sure there's a list somewhere. Someone's got on the Board Game Trading and Chat. I think someone's got a Google sheet with all the board game cafes across the UK. We'll try and pencil something in.
So yes, but anyway, I just thought I'd give these two shops, these two cafes, a shout because they're good institutions and good facilities, and with all of the horrible weather they've obviously suffered through no fault of their own. So I recommend people go and check them out, support them, go and say hello, and enjoy themselves.
I've actually played some games. I've played some board games. It's brilliant.
That needs a fanfare.
You'll put that in the edit.
Yeah. Yeah, so we all met and we played. We didn't actually play much terribly new, but we did play some old favourites and introduce them to some people. And the first one we played was Nanty Narking.
Yes.
I believe it's yours, Andy.
It is mine from Phalanx Games. They released it a couple of years ago now via the medium of Kickstarter. Other crowdfunding platforms are available. And I think I saw it first time probably one of the expos actually a few years ago, where it was still in beta.
Did you not play the prototype copy I was sent?
It might have been that one. I can't remember.
I can't remember if you played it.
Oh no, I
with me.
did.
Okay.
Yes, I did. We played that. Yes, we did.
Yes,
we did. That was probably 3 or 4 years ago now.
That's got to be 4 years ago easily. Because right, so for those that don't know, Nanty Narking is actually a reprint of Ankh-Morpork. So it's a Martin Wallace game. The issue with the license all ran out, so the actual Ankh-Morpork version is now worth stupid money. You know, what was like a £30 game, and I'm not kidding, it was like 30 quid, is now like thick end of 300.
Jeez Louise.
Well, probably more like 150. I've definitely seen it sell for 150, and I'm pretty sure that price is going up as people.
Wow.
So the original game, you were playing an Ankh-Morpork, and you were secretly playing one of the characters from it, but that's translated now into Victorian London, which takes all kinds of characters from kind of Victorian literature like Sherlock Holmes and Dracula and
Oliver Twist.
Yeah, all kinds of random stuff. But it's basically the same game, just rethemed, reskinned. There might be some slight changes, but they are, whatever they are very minor.
Yeah, they've knocked a couple of corners off, planed a few edges, and giving it a new coat.
So the basic gist of the game is you have a secret identity which gives you your victory condition. And they are generally either control enough areas, and you have to win this condition at the start of your turn. So you can't do something and then go, aha, I've won. You've got to have it at the beginning of your turn, which makes it quite interesting. Control a certain number of areas, which is the most common of the victory. I think there's like 3 characters have got that victory condition.
Yeah.
3,
4.
yes. The three lords.
4, isn't it?
No, there's 3. There's 3.
Is it 3?
Yeah.
There is have the most cash, and that doesn't mean just physical cash. It means you can also have money invested in properties on the board. You can have the most people in different locations. You can have the most trouble, which is something that comes in that basically stops things happening. And there is one person that wins if no one else has won by the end of the game.
If all the cards have been run out, yeah.
So if no one else has won by the end of the game, this person wins. It was Commander Vimes in the original, and it's Sherlock Holmes, I think, in the new version, isn't it? Yes. So what this means is, this is a game in which you're trying to look like you're doing something else while trying to achieve your victory condition. And you ideally want everyone else to be going, hang on, Sid's got a lot of cash there. We've got to make sure he either loses some of that cash, or we make sure he doesn't have it when it comes back around to him, that kind of thing. Or hang on, Andy's controlling. Andy needs one more territory and he's won. Or Andy has got enough territories to win if he's a lord. We need to steal territory off him, or hope he's not a lord. Or an actual example, Steve's got more than enough cash to win the game. We better hope he's not that character.
Yeah.
Turns out he wasn't.
Yeah.
It was.
But the way the game plays is like classic Martin Wallace. You get given random cards, and these cards have a set of actions on them which have to be done in order, which allow you to manipulate the board. So what you can do on any turn is not a set prescribed set of actions. It depends on what cards you've got in your hand. So the basic things are like you can put your people on the board, you can move your people around, you can buy properties, you can
remove trouble, kill people,
kill people,
pull a card from the random event deck,
grab another card,
basically.
Yeah, and then each card, a lot of the cards as well have a written description of something a bit more advanced they do, and that is the crux of the game. Working with the hand of cards to try and do what you need to do to meet those, and at the same time not make it too obvious.
Yeah, not looking like you're trying to do that thing. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I really love this game. I said I loved Ankh-Morpork, and I think this is. I mean, it's the same game. I do prefer the Ankh-Morpork theme a little bit, just because I'm a big Terry Pratchett fan. But it doesn't actually detract from the game at all, because it's the same Martin Wallace game, basically.
No, I went around to Andy's, I think about 3 weeks ago now, and having heard you guys, I think we've talked about it briefly on the podcast before, and I was like, I want to give this a go. Andy, Alora, and myself played, and I fell in love with this game instantly. It helped that I won
twice.
Yeah, well, but we played it and I loved it, and I really, it's really simple to get. The rules in this are really, really straightforward, and we played it, and it was because it was so quick. It was actually, let's set up and play again. I was all for that. Set it up, played it again, and I've been chomping at the bit to play it again. So when we met up at Sid's the following Sunday, I was like, "Can we play Nanty Narking again?" And Nanty Narking is the game I'm going to buy when I lose another £3.4, just so I can have a copy. It's my weight loss target. I'm not allowed to buy board games until I reach certain weight loss targets, because I'm trying to marry up being healthy in 2022 with buying less board games.
Right. Got you.
Yeah,
I don't understand.
But if you get fat again, do you then get another treat if you lose it again?
So if he gets fat, he has to sell a game.
Oh, nice. There you go. So that's been punishment for getting fat.
Okay, yeah, we can work with that.
Don't agree to these terms, Rory.
No, I think it's going to keep me on track. That means I'm going to be able to buy more board games. But yeah, so I'm literally just counting down the pounds until I can go and buy it, because I can't wait to play this game again. It's fantastic.
Well, you're more than welcome to borrow it if you wish.
Thank you.
I realise I may never see it again if I do that.
And he'll stay fat.
Yes, yeah. You do it no one for. But no, this is a fantastic game. I think one of the things I love about it is how deceptive you have to be to playing this game.
Yes,
you know, your first couple of turns, everyone's just kind of doing stuff. Everyone's going to be putting something on the board. But by the time you get to around turn 3, turn 4, which happens very quickly, even in a... Does it go up to 5 players, Andy?
No, it's just 4.
By the time it happens very quickly. By the time you get to that point, you have got to start watching what everyone else is doing, and you've got to be doing that. I'm going to try and look like I'm doing this thing, but actually still trying to achieve my goal by doing it this way. It's fantastic, and it's really brilliant when you have those conversations around the table of Steve is clearly this person. He's got this objective. We need to do everything we can to stop him. And Steve is sat there going, "No, I'm not." You know, and but the fact that when we were playing the game, the 4 of us, we all had those moments. Andy is definitely this. Rory is definitely this, and he's trying to do this. We need to stop him, and then I can see you just trying to stop me doing the thing, and it's working, but it's not actually detracting from my goal at all in any way.
Probably helping you, because I kinged you twice.
Yeah. You think you're stopping me winning, but actually, Andy, you're making me win. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm good at that.
And that's just really nice. And you get round to your turn, and you go, so how many agents do I have? How many areas do I control? How many trouble? Oh, I win. And that's really nice, is that you've got to have that at the beginning of your turn. You just go, I win. Game over.
Yes.
And it's a lovely, lovely feeling when you are the person doing it.
The only downside to this game, and it is kind of a very brief downside, is that if you introduce it to somebody who's new and maybe not as experienced in board gaming, and you've played this a few times, you will almost certainly win within about 10 minutes because they don't know what to watch out for. So it's like you run riots. I control half the map. I win. Done.
There is that, but I think when you did the teach, Andy, when I played with you and Laura, you spelled out, and I think that's, you've got to be really clear. You win at the beginning of your turn if you meet these objectives. These are all the objectives. Here they are on this handout. Yes. Keep looking at this through the game. Yeah. And then when you and Steve did the teach to show Sid how to play this game, you both did that. It's so pivotal to be able to, for everybody to enjoy the game, that everybody understands how everybody can win.
Yes, very much so. Otherwise, I got that from experience. That experience, basically, because it's a bit shit if you just sort of walk all over everybody and win after 10 minutes, because that's just not fair.
It's still hard. It's still hard, though. Even though you guys told me that, trying to actually play effectively more than one game is quite difficult when you're new.
Yeah.
Because not only am I trying to play, I'm trying to play my victory condition is, but I'm trying to mask it now. And you know, that handout is brilliant. The player aid that comes with it is awesome. It's got everything you need on it.
Yeah.
And no need to flick through the cards or rely on somebody else to tell you what the win conditions are.
And also, on that side, it's actually really subtle as well. Yeah. It's not like you have to read great swaths of text. So it's not obvious when you're really looking at it. You can be looking at any part of that handout because it's got all the information on there.
It was really well laid out. And I think, as you guys said, that's an absolute key part of the game, is to have all that information of what's on all the cards and all the potential people that could be out. Yeah. But even then, trying to keep up with what each of you three were doing whilst I'm trying to work out what I'm actually trying to do and then what I'm trying to cover up. At one point, I was playing the wrong thing, right? And I forgot to tell you this at the end of the game. I'd forgotten what I was playing because I was playing my cover story, right? And I went around two or three rounds going, oh shit, that's not what I do to win. It's when I was playing the... So I think I had the net worth guy. But in my head, for some reason, I joined that up with get as many territories as I can. Or the four...
The control
one. And I was chasing around territories. And I'd completely forgotten what I was doing. So, I was so lost in what you guys were doing.
You are allowed to look at your objective card again during the game, Sid.
I know, but no, it wasn't that. It was just...
So like a one-time only deal.
No,
right,
it was a good thing.
Never look at that again.
No, it was a good thing. I'm not. For me, it was because I was lost I was absorbed in playing the game. I just forgot what I was trying to win with. But I think, as you guys, you just summed it up for me. It was a difficult game. And if I hadn't known that I had to play more than one, pretend like I was playing something else, then you're quite right. It would have been just a proper pumping.
But then I think the thing with that is because the game actually is so straightforward and very quick, you can play a game and go, I really enjoyed that. Now I know what I'm doing. Let's play again. And you can boss out a 4-player game. I reckon if everybody knows what they're doing, you could probably play that in 30, 45 minutes, tops.
Agree. Yeah. Just rattles around.
And it packs a lot of punch in that time as well.
I have one minor complaint, which I never really noticed before, but that last game really came through, is what you can do is based entirely on the cards you've got, because not all those cards are the same, which means you don't have access to all the same actions all the time. And I got to about less than a quarter of the way through the game and then didn't pick up a single card that allowed me to place a unit on the board. An agent on the board, which was really annoying because I was Moriarty and my job was to get agents on the board. I was just kept picking up cards going, oh. Yeah, and what was really annoying as well, I had 2 cards in my hand which would have stopped my agents from being removed for any reason.
Nice.
And it was like, That's brilliant. I need that because that means when I do finally get to my win condition, I can stop everyone else from trying to stop me from doing it. But no, did I get the cards that allowed to place agents? No. So then I was burning through cards to try and get the cards I actually wanted. So everyone goes, "Oh, he's Holmes now because he's burning through cards."
And you were just generating money. You were playing cards that just gave you money.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well now everyone's got to give Steve $3 or £3, and he's burning through cards. It's like, what the hell is Steve? What is he doing?
Not even Steve knows what he's doing.
Yeah, but no, yeah. I mean, I suffered from that a bit in our game. I forget what I had, but I was trying to get some buildings down, and I just didn't have, for a good first third of the game, didn't have the ability to place buildings. I had money, I had agents, but I couldn't place buildings, and I don't think it was necessarily a win condition for me. I can't remember what I had now, but I think I wanted it to be able to put you guys off, or to buy specific buildings that allowed me to do things for my win condition. And that it does suck, but it's just you've just got to burn through that deck and hope Sherlock isn't playing.
Yes. No, it's good fun. I'm glad I backed it. It's a really lovely game. The quality of the components is very, very good as well.
Yeah.
I'm glad you backed it as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you backed it.
I'm glad you backed it. I'm glad
you're
you brought it
welcome,
around.
boys. You're welcome, boys. Well done.
It can come again.
Okay, good. I'll remember that. It wasn't that expensive, actually, if I remember rightly. Either.
You can pick it up, having extensively researched this since playing it. You can actually pick it up for around £30.
There you go.
Maybe less than 35. That'll give you the cardboard standees. If you want the models, the little miniatures, which are very nice, and just give it a bit more pimp, you're looking at about £65. But
sounds about right.
Even at £65, I think this is a game well worth buying. You know, considering the average price of board games at the moment, £65 isn't that outlandish, and it is a phenomenal game.
Agreed.
No, agreed. God, it's weird, isn't it? Saying £65 is not outlandish.
Yeah.
Well, I remember the first board game I paid £65 for, and I was fretting for weeks about whether I was actually going to play the damn thing.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, I mean, I just remember even on this podcast, we were thinking, £30 or £40 is kind of where most board games were, 4 or 5 years ago. And now it's a factor of 2 more. It's really quite scary.
Yeah, but that's it. I think if you Nanty Narking for 30, I mean, you're less than £35, including shipping. If you shop around, is an absolute bargain.
Agreed.
And the cardboard components are nice and colourful. They're really, it's brilliant. It's really nice. I just want that bit of pimp. I'm a little bit frustrated that you can't buy the base game and then just go, I'm going to buy the miniatures later, like the metal coins. I can just buy the metal coins as an add-on. I can't buy the models as an add-on. Boo hiss. But I can understand that they want to, the way these manufacturing, the way these things work. Yeah, so that's Nanty Narking from Phalanx Games. I think that's 2 thumbs up from all 4 of us. Is that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, loved it.
Yeah,
it was great.
Loved that game. So the other thing we played, which has been on my shelf of review shame for far too long, because I think this game actually came out of Essen, although originally it came out a long time ago, is we played the 2nd edition of Galaxy Trucker. Now what this is CGE, or Czech Games Edition as they're fully called, rebundled Galaxy Trucker into a kind of more digestible small box, because I think it's one of those games that had 1 billion expansions, and it was one that you could only buy big boxes for some time, and there was odds and sods. So they kind of rebranded it, tidied it all up, stuck it all back together, and made a basic box of Galaxy Trucker. So this is actually quite an old game, and it's actually, I remember it's one of the first games I played when I went to a games night at Worcester, so about 10, 12 years ago now, which is equally terrifying. It is a game in which you build a spaceship and then you basically test run that spaceship. The way you build it is this mad dash kind of scramble for pieces in which all the pieces that make up the spaceship, like modules that have crew, modules that have cargo space, modules that have lasers and power and shields and engines, are all face down in the middle of the table, and with one hand you have to pick them up and look at them, and if you put them on your ship, that's it. It's welded in position and you're not allowed to move it. So there is this kind of mad scramble as everyone's trying to get the different pieces. And the game comes with various boards, so you can start off with little tiny wee ships or go into huge, massive ships. Once you've done all that and the rules for how you place them, you basically stress test these ships by going on a Galaxy Trucker run, which means going from point A to point B, but what that is a deck of cards, which is just random events. And the random events could be simply you get hit by asteroids, you get attacked by pirates, slavers, you find an abandoned space station, or you find planets in which you can pick up cargo. And then you score points based on who gets to the destination first, the cargo you've got, and then you lose points based on how many bits of your ship you've lost. And I'm going to admit, I'm reviewing this like it's a new game, but it's more or less exactly the same game that was out 10 years ago with just, I wouldn't even say a major overhaul. It seems to be just a little bit of a sprucing up of the rule book and the artwork here and there. And even that's not major. It just seems like someone's just changed the contrasts a little bit so it looks a bit cleaner. I don't know. I haven't got the other version to do like a side-by-side comparison, but I've got the rule book does seem easier to digest. On the whole, I've got a major complaint, but I'll come to later.
Ooh.
Yeah, no, I have a major complaint with the rule book. I will come to that in a minute. But the game itself, I've always loved this game, and I'm really good it's still available because I think this is a bit of a classic, this. But I get the impression it didn't go down well with any of you three.
I can confirm.
Those two can shut
Steve.
up, right? I think it was good. I enjoyed it.
I agree with you that Galaxy Trucker 2nd Edition is a game.
And that we played it.
Well, there you go. Everyone on the internet always complains that board game reviews are subjective and they should be objective. There you go. That's a 100% objective review.
Yep.
There you go.
Moving on. No,
these two are wrong, and we're right.
I haven't cast my opinion yet, Mr. Gill.
Yeah,
you have
it's in your tone of voice. It's in your indignation.
Yeah, we heard you rambling about it, Andy, while Steve was playing. Was it Secrets of what was it? The Ring of Elden
Ring.
The Elden Ring. Yeah.
What I said off the record is entirely different. I could have been leading you on.
But you weren't.
You're not that.
I'll go then. The floor is yours, sir. Proceed.
It's all right. The problem with it is, it's the same problem I have with most small games, is that I have now seen everything it can do. It's fun. It lasts 20 minutes, and it'll be fine for the end of a night. But I wouldn't want to play it more than about once a year.
I don't think you're wrong on that. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing either.
I think Andy's wrong. I think I wouldn't want to play that ever again.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. It's not 100% objective. We're all on different pages, and everyone's got a different opinion.
Look, it is a classic game. It's been around for a goodly long while. I hadn't played it before. I have now played it, and I feel no need to play that game again. I think if I was given the opportunity to, sit down with a bunch of people and they say, we're going to play Galaxy Trucker, do you want to play? I would rather go and spend another 20 minutes looking for another good game to play than to play Galaxy Trucker. And the reason for it, there was just so much randomness. There was just nothing. We played 2 games back to back, and the first game was just get some stuff, and I didn't really know what I was doing, and built my ship kind of a bit shit, and it went off and it failed badly. And then the second time we played it, the timer starts, and the first thing I did was look at all the cards to know what was coming. And I was like, okay, so now I know what's coming. I'm just going to build my ship to deal with what's coming. And then I've just took my time looking for all the pieces. And even then, the points value I got in the second game it jumped me right up the leaderboard. But I was still like, well, that's it. That's all I have to do well in this game is look at those cards and then pick the right pieces and put them in the right place. And I was like, well, that's mystery over, puzzle solved, game done.
I know what you mean. You just don't like fun, do you? You just don't like fun. You're the miserable old... See, the thing is, right, I tell you what I enjoyed. I enjoyed the Mad Rami, right? I loved that. I loved the fact that I just went... I didn't even completely forgot to even look at the cards and plan it and predict it. I just went, all that. I'm just going to pick up piles and try and put them in. Couldn't find the piece I want. I got irritated at Steve or somebody for taking the lasers I
and
wanted.
that
I thought
was
it was
enjoyable.
brilliant that somebody forgot the batteries and they had guns and they couldn't use half their ship. I just loved it. I don't know what it was.
It's a game of chaos. It's a game of
is.
chaos. That's the point. You make something and then random stuff happens to it. And I think if you're not into that kind of, as you said, the control you have is minimal. Because it is a case of seeing randomly what happens.
But your level of control is a choice. Like that first game, I was like, I'm just going to start flipping over random pieces and doing stuff. And then the second game, after we played it once, I was like, now I get it. Now I know what I have to do. Sun timer starts, I just looked at the cards.
Now, part of that is because none of us were being arseholes and flipping the sand timers to make that build go even quicker.
Enough. But so I looked at the cards, and then by this point, because you guys have already found pieces and put them back on face up, I just went, I know I need that. I know I need that. I know I need that laser there. I need that shield there. And then just connect. Okay, that should get me through. It was
we didn't have the kind of mega panic where like someone hasn't finished building their ship and the sand timer's got like 4 grains left and they're just randomly putting things on just to fill up the spaces. We didn't have that one. But yeah, I understand where you're coming from, actually, Rory. I understand it's not for everyone. I will actually say John hasn't been on the podcast for a while, but I know John actually loves this game as well. And it's understandable because it really falls into his mindset of what game. It's short, it's chaotic, and random crap happens to you.
Yeah, no, it's really not for me. But then there's a few games that I think you guys all love that a lot of people love, like Codenames. I would rather put my head in an oven than play Codenames.
What?
Something wrong with you, something.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put the oven on. I'd just say, I'm just going to put it in the oven and smell that really old roast beef that's in there. Do you
know what? I just feel like it's part of the different types of games that you need for different times of the day, and I just felt it was because we did it just before lunch, I think, and it just felt like a lovely little 20 minutes, half an hour.
Yeah.
Blast through it and then put it away. And that was fine. That's all I wanted from it.
That is actually one of the differences between this and the original. The original was an hour game because the original you were supposed to do 3 runs and do the small, medium, and large ship. So you basically did multiple runs to go through it. Whereas this has now been streamlined. Just play whatever level you want and just play it and off you go. I will mention my complaint, actually. I don't like the rule book because the rule book does this thing of like, here's how to play your first game and gives you instructions on how to play and then goes, and here's the extra rules for the full game.
Yeah.
Which means like the rules for the standard setup are at the back after you've read all the rules on how to play. Ooh. So it's like, I assume it's for people who, this is a light game. It's not going to be for the heavy gamers, who are into your 5-hour epic Euros. But at the same time, it felt like it could have done with distinguishing that a little bit further and doing like, well, here's the basic rules and for your quick game, for your first game, now here's the full rules. But what it actually said is like, here's the quick rules, and then here's the additional rules you should use when you play properly. And it just felt a bit difficult to read, especially like at the table, just double check the setup rules. It's like, why are they there? Why? What?
So was it kind of like the Fantasy Flight approach where you got the learn to play book and then the rules reference, but it just wasn't as well done?
It wasn't as well done as the Fantasy Flight ones because it really was like, here is your first game, and so here's the fundamentals. Oh, now here's the extra things you need to do. So it wasn't even like a rules reference because at least with the rules reference FFG, all the rules in the rules reference.
Sorry, I meant the just the how to the learn to play book. But even then, it's kind of stop. You have all the rules that you need to play because Imperial Assault does this, Doom does this, Manchester Madness does
FFG, this was kind of like that. But then it said, oh, by the way, and now here's the rules you need to learn to play. That was just the rules for your first game, baby's first game, which was annoying.
Oh well, I found it very blue and very bright, but then again, that might just be something to do with my dog eyes.
It was very cartoony and colourful.
Yeah, it was very blue, actually. Come to think of it. But yeah, so what's that? That's Galaxy Trucker from CGE.
Yes, it's just called. We're calling it second edition, but it's just called Galaxy Trucker. They haven't actually named it that. But yes.
The next game is Pachacuna from Triceratops Games.
Good name for a company.
Yes. Which is only a 2-player game. So I've been playing this in the last couple of weeks with, the last week, in fact, with Elora, as it's a 2-player game. So we've sat down and played this. And the idea is that you are some kind of farmer, and you are traipsing around South America with a pack of llamas, trying to deliver dyes, various products, to the villages around the region. And each village produces a different coloured dye. So you take one dye from one village and sell it to another dye. And each village has this sort of demand flag. So I don't know if anyone ever played Black and White, casting your mind.
Yeah.
out.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember
Oh, yeah.
all the buildings had a little flag above them that said we need like wood or wheat or whatever it is? And the bigger the flag, the more demand it was. It's a bit like that. There's 2 flags above each village, and there's a big flag and a small flag. And the idea is that you are supposed to make a collection of individual unique dyes. There are 7 colours to represent the 7 villages on the board. So there's a bunch of hexes that form the board. And once you've got all 7 of these, you win the game. And the idea is that you take a llama who carries this dye and moves through the mountains, and you drop off your dye. And if it's a major demand, you'll get 2 dyes back. And if it's only 1 dye, then you get to keep the 1 dye that was on the llama. So if it's a unique one, you'll go into your store, and if not, then you'll keep it as a spare.
Just to clarify, sorry, Andy, when you say dye, are you talking about as like a
lump of wood, basically. It's a component in the game. It's
right,
as in a dye,
okay, not as in
something-
an actual dice.
No,
Yeah, okay,
no,
cool.
not roly dice. No, a dye as in a dye to colour fabric.
Cool, thank you.
And yeah, DYE, not DIE. And in order to move around the board, there are lots and lots of little hexes, and the hexes are kind of dual layered. So the higher layers are brown or grey, which represent the mountains, and the lower levels represent the plains. And the idea is on your turn, you can rotate 1 or more of these hexagons to form a path that your little llama can go along. So a little bit like Tsuro, where you choose path and you go to the end of the path and you stop.
Okay.
So you can kind of do that in this. You don't have to go to the end, but most of the time you probably want to. And the idea is you form a path from sort of one area to the next, and you can go from one village to the next. So the idea is to make it as efficient as possible for your llamas to move around. But if one player uses the lowlands, the other player uses the highlands, and never the twain shall meet.
Okay.
So the idea is that you can sort of twist these hexes around, and you can basically interfere with your opponent's path, in theory.
Sorry, quick question. Does that mean that all 7 villages can be reached by both the highlands and the lowlands?
Yes. Everyone has access to all 7 villages.
Okay, cool.
So there's like 3 hexes that surround each village, apart from the village in the middle, which has got obviously 6 hexes around it. So everyone can get in more than one way. So the idea is obviously you're trying to build this little network that only you can access, with obviously your opponent sort of trying to interfere as they go along. And the first person to collect all 7 dyes basically wins. And during the game, you can buy extra llamas, and you can also buy the ability to turn more hexes around on your turn. So basically piss your opponent off and just go, I'm just going to randomly turn that hex around and get in your way. And that's basically it. It's dead simple. The problem is, it's not very interesting.
It looks kind of cute.
It is
pictures of it.
It is very pretty, and it's very well made. The problem is, I mean, I had a beautiful assistant to help me actually build the game together. Because you know what I find? When I buy a game off a shelf, I like it when it's fully built. Because in this one, it's not fully built at all. Alora had to spend about an hour building the game. So every single hex is in a punch board, and every single mountain bit is in the punch board. And you've got a little sticker sheet of double-sided circles. So you've got to basically put a double-sided sticky bit in the middle of a circle on each hex and stick the mountain to the top of it. On about 50 hexes.
What? You've got to glue. You've got to stick the components together to make the mountains.
Yes.
Wow.
Right. Okay.
There was a lot of swearing whilst this happened.
Now I'm going to stop you there because I think Logan would love doing that. Right? I don't know about your kid, Jay, but Sid. So, but you can just go. Here you go. Go put this game together for me.
No. It would be on jaunty. I'd have to kill him. He wouldn't get the edges lined up. No.
Okay.
No. To be fair, Laura did a very good job of that. She was very precise, and it all looks fine. It all looks really,
well
really good.
done, Laura. Let's go.
Did very good.
Not patronising at all, Andy.
No.
Do you want one
genuinely,
rubber
it's-
head as well? Just to
Well, yeah, there's always the risk that, you put one of them slightly askew, and of course you've done it, you can't pull it off because it'll tear the cardboard. It all went together fine. But to me, that just seems like something that should have been done in the factory.
Yeah.
How big a publisher is it?
It's very small.
Very small.
I think
Right. Okay.
it might even be their first game.
Yeah. So it's a cost-saving exercise, isn't it?
It's a cost-saving.
Of course it is, yes.
Yeah.
It's just quite frustrating when you first open the box, you want to play the game, you've just got to spend an hour putting these bloody things together.
It's actually their second game. The previous one was Darwin's Choice,
I've heard good things
okay.
about
which
Darwin's
was a
Choice.
card game. Yeah.
But once it's put together, you don't need to change it, and
Yeah.
it doesn't come apart. It's all fine. And there are two sides to play on. So there's like a sort of starting setup that you got to put all the hexes in, which is another pain in the arse to set up the board. So each hex has to go in a particular way round. So the amount of mounting or playing on each hex is slightly different on each hex. So some of them have more playing and less mounting, and vice versa. So
Okay.
the idea is obviously across the map that there's an even split between the two. And there are two ways to set up the game, but ultimately, you just got to basically arse around, put these hexagons in, and then off you go. And if
Did
you
it
go-
make it better? Did that make the game better that you had this 3-dimensional hex, or was it?
No.
No.
Well, I mean, it makes no. I mean, it looks nice, and I suppose it makes the game a little bit more thematic. But in practical terms, no,
No,
they
it
could have
doesn't.
just printed mountains and screen printed it onto one layer, and it
Yeah.
would have been fine.
So is this like a pick up and deliver network building game? Do you actually pick up the dies and move it to another location, or do
Yes.
you move?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, exactly right.
Have you seen the pictures of it? You got little wooden alpacas, and you actually have the dies and little things that slot into their back. I said it looks really cute.
Oh yeah, it's very pretty. But yes, you put the little die on the back of the llama, and off it goes around this little network. And if you're good and you can build these little networks up, you can kind of zip your llamas around in pretty much one turn. So on your go, you can move all of your llamas or only one of them. It's entirely up to you. You can get up to 3. And if you're really efficient and you've set everything up properly, you can zip these things around and potentially gain 3, 4, 5 dies in a single turn. But that depends on the randomly generated demand token. So once you've sold one die at one village, you change the flag, so the demand might completely change.
So looking at the pictures now, yeah, that does look very
Tell
cute.
you what, it does look really nice though. I
It
mean,
is
lovely.
it's
It's
got
really
it's got a
pretty.
lovely cutie kind of look. I love the llamas. The llamas are cool.
Yeah.
It is really pretty, and it's really simple to play, although the rules are not the clearest. We had a couple of discussions amongst us about what does it actually mean, because there's one rule that says you have to move your llama. I'm like, well, what if you've moved a tile, or someone's moved a tile that means that you can't move your llama? Or does it mean that you have to move a tile to rotate a tile to mean that that you're able to move your llama? It's just things like that that was slightly unclear. So we kind of house ruled it and kind of played in the spirit of what we think was meant, but I think the rules could have been tightened up a little just for clarification more than anything else. As a game, it's perfectly functional.
Yeah.
It's reasonable. It's easy to learn. It's literally 2 pages of A5 basically of the full rule set. So it's not difficult to learn at all.
Quick
And it's
game,
fairly
slow
straightforward to
game?
play. It takes about half an hour. It's not long at all. And yeah, once you get used to it, it's just to go around. I mean, you can have a little bit of AP if you get a bit of brain burn, if you're trying to sort of work out which tile to rotate to give you the best chance. But it's not a difficult game at all. I mean, I got to the point where I'd built such a little mountain network around the entire board that I could move between 5 out of the 7 villages in a single move, and just go which was quite nice. But it takes a little while to get up to that. So, but the criticism of that is you can almost do that with both players. So both players can move around to pretty much wherever they want to go with almost no interference. So the way you want to interfere with that was active interference with your opponent's network without interfering with your own. And that to me felt a little forced, because I don't need to turn any tiles around because my network's built now. Done.
Right. So was it basically just a race to see who could build their network?
Pretty
first, then?
much, yes. Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah. I'm just doing a look at this now. It looks like it's only really recently just been delivered from Kickstarter. This was a Kickstarter.
Yes.
The final update was at the beginning of the month, or yesterday, in fact, that it's like 95% fulfilled. So it's not widely available anywhere at the moment, especially in the UK. But looking at this, it's looking like it's the best part of £40 to buy this game.
wow, really?
Yeah.
I can understand that because it'd be a small print run.
Yeah, it's going to be a small print run, yeah.
It's small print run, and it has got, as I said, it's got custom components. You know, those little, llama meeples are not going to be using anything else. So, yeah, and that's with you sticking these boards together yourself.
Yes.
I reckon it would have been another 50. I reckon another tenner on if you'd had to have them pre-stuck.
Probably, or even just, printed. But it is lovely. It's really well made. It's high quality components. So, yes, that's probably why it costs £40. It's extremely nice, really nicely handled and well made. And you get a little bag, sort of South American style bag.
Yeah,
to
it
put
looks
all
very
the demand
nice.
flags in. So, yeah, very well made, very well presented, very pretty. But I think for us, we've now played it 3 times and we're kind of done.
But I think this almost goes back to, I think it's almost like it's a nice story, nice idea that this is a new, small board game publisher that are supporting probably a small, new board game designer and getting their games out there. So the people that have crowdfunded this game have actually brought this game into existence that without them, it wouldn't appear. Unlike a lot of the CMONs and stuff like that don't now use it more like a pre-ordering system. Not to open that can of worms, but I think that's what this game is. It is a new designer, a new company that are starting up, and it sounds like they've got an all right game on their hands for their second game out the door.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad game by any stretch of the imagination. It really isn't. So.
No, fair play. I do like my 2-player games. So yeah, worth a look. I might have to see if I can get that off you, Andy. Actually, to have a go at it myself.
By all means.
Next time we do a meetup.
Mm-hmm.
Questions. David S. Livens, who draws stuff, asks the question: what are your thoughts on board gaming as a whole lately, after the last 18 months of pandemic? Well, David.
I should also say that question is probably 6 months old, so it's probably the last 2 years.
Okay, fair enough, right.
There we are. PHC at the bleeding edge of...
I don't know, you could probably call it, I mean, it'll be 18 months of a pandemic game that me and Steve were playing, because that's how long it took us to play between sessions.
So hang on, we were late with our 2021 review.
Well, we don't need to recap this, Sid.
With our preview, and now we're late with our questions as well.
All it means is we are obviously going to provide a more considered and well-rounded answer with having had the time to truly think about it.
What
you have got a shine on that turn, haven't you?
I think
that's just been
Andy.
rolled in 4 layers of glitter.
Andy, I can categorically tell you that David S. Livens knows that that's bullshit because he listens to this podcast.
Shush you.
No. So what am I? Right. So I'm going to jump straight in here. So my thoughts are, over the last 18 months, since the pandemic, since it all started off, I kind of dropped off the board gaming scene altogether. I wasn't going into the office, which is where I played a lot of board games with my mates at work on my lunch break. We weren't able to go to the pub, weren't able to meet people up, so just playing board games became almost impossible to me. And with 2 small children at home, meeting up online to play the RPGs with you guys, or to play Tabletop Simulator or one of its variants, was also just out of the question. That being said, this year, it's 2022, I wanted to make a really big effort to get back into the hobby. I've got a shelf with a lot of games on it that I just haven't been playing nearly enough, and I really wanted to get back into it because I've missed hanging out with people. So I took the steps of, I went on meetup.com and found a board gaming group that plays on a Monday, three times a month in my area. So started going along to that, meet some new people, have a bit of a laugh, play some board games, making a bit more of an effort to kind of shout to you fellas, let's meet up and play some board games if you're free at the weekend, and then taking advantage of those when they do pop up, making more of an effort to go, actually, yeah, I know Andy's house is an hour's drive away from me, but I really want to play board games. And doing it. And this year, I've played more games so far, and it is only the 8th of March. I've played more games this year than I have over the last 2. And I'm loving it. It's great to get back into the action. In terms of what's going on in the industry, I haven't got a clue because I've left it. I left it all behind. Because I was getting I talk about the anxiety and the depression of what happened during pandemic and the lockdown. I stopped paying attention to Twitter. I stopped paying attention to Instagram and Facebook because all I saw were people doing fun things that I wanted to do and couldn't. Or I saw people bitching and moaning about all the fun things that they couldn't do as well. So it came like an echo chamber. So stuff that's not good for me, leave it all behind. And I've not really got back into it. At the moment, I'm just going, actually, I've had this game knocking around for ages. I want to play that. Let's do it. Or this Kickstarter's finally turned up. I can now finally go to the pub. Let's go play it. So I'm playing a lot of the older games or games that I love. The games that I know I like and I haven't played for ages, but now I've got an opportunity to I just want to play games, except Galaxy Trucker, again and again.
Weirdly, I've almost had a flip of you there, Rory. So my personal experience is really, and it's probably similar to Andy, because what happened was when we were allowed out of lockdown, me and Andy were organising stuff. We were organising games. So I had a little bit of a downturn when lockdown all started. I mean, I used to play games quite regularly with our friend Adam. Adam had not long had a kidney transplant before lockdown started, so basically he was locked down proper. He's immunocompromised and all that. So my Wednesday night gaming's just disappeared, and then our weekend gamings, and then whenever lockdown sessions got eased, it ended up that either Andy would come to mine or I'd go to Andy's, and we'd try and play something. Usually, something new that we've had over that time or whatever. And I was playing about as much as I probably could. But the major difference that happened to us is we really latched onto the RPGs. There was a point when we were playing RPGs 3 nights a week until our partners were complaining that we were playing too many RPGs. So my Wednesday night board gaming night has now become a second RPG night. We now play RPGs twice a week. Weirdly, I've now had this weird thing that because of the things that have happened to me over the last 4 months, I've now got to the point where I am not playing any games. I'm looking at my games and going, I have not touched any of these in 4 months. I've not played a game in 4 months, that kind of thing. I've not looked at what's coming out. But the weird thing for me, and I actually think it's almost a positive for me, is the lockdown, the global shipping crisis and all that has slowed down the release rate of games because it's taking longer and it's been more expensive to manufacture them. And it sounds like a bad thing, but to me, I think this has been really good. It was getting to the point pre-lockdown that so many games were coming out that it was impossible to play them all. Somebody would be raving on about the latest game, and you'd go, oh, I really want to play that. And then it would have sold out, so you wouldn't be able to buy it. No one else you knew had it. And the next thing you know, everyone's talking about the next game. Like 2 weeks later, everyone's kind of gone off it, and a couple of games would stay floating above, but loads of games just kind of came and went. And I feel as if now that the releases are becoming a bit slower, that we're not having that issue, which I think is actually quite good. And there's less new stuff coming out, which is not a bad thing because there's still a lot of games coming out. It just doesn't seem to be as much. But I'm with you a bit there, Rory. I mean, I think we've all gone off Twitter a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not looking at board game news as much as I would. I mean, you may notice we haven't done a news article in this website, on this podcast episode.
Almost got away with that.
No, I'm going to be honest, because I didn't. No, there's nothing that came. Usually what I used to do is if something interesting came along, I'd put it in the Google Notes ready for the next episode. and nothing has come along that I've kind of gone, ooh, that's something I'm really excited about.
No,
I don't even back to board game Kickstarter in 6 months. It might even be 9 months. The last one I backed was Voidfall?
bloody hell,
The
yes, it would have
Minecraft
been.
game?
Yeah.
I mean, I've backed a couple of little RPG ones, but I've not backed a big board game Kickstarter in ages.
Yeah, the last thing I backed on Kickstarter was a book, actually. But yeah, there's just been no real interest. I've not been shopping around for them either.
I will make no comment.
Well, I think I'm a bit stuck in the middle of you two then. Because I didn't really play any board games before the lockdown. Maybe the odd one or two with Steve, Andy, maybe. Possibly before lockdown.
Yeah, you've played
the odd one or two,
us,
but
yeah.
But it was all, for me, it was the RPGs. And as you say, then we ramped those up to stupid levels and divorces nearly happened and things. But on the other hand, I think those kept us sane. And I think the RPGs and then maybe the post kind of game chats actually drew me into the board games. So for me, my journey through it has been quite, it's ramped up a lot to the point where I feel like you now, Rory. I've played more board games in the last 6 months than I probably have in the last 30 years of my life. So yeah, from my point of view, with respect to that, the pandemic's been kind of good in that. It's been a whole lot of other shite as well, but it's a funny old thing.
So just on the Kickstarter thing, I've just tried to log into Kickstarter to work out when my last backing was. It's been so long, I have forgotten my password. I cannot for the life remember what my password is for Kickstarter, so I'm going to have to reset it. That's how long I haven't been on there.
Wow.
Which I'm sure my bank account would thank me for.
Yeah, my experience is different again. So we've all had different experiences. Mine hasn't really changed because I'm in the very fortunate position of having. I live, and my partner is also a very keen board
Your
gamer.
housemate.
So other than playing board games at a reduced player count, we're still playing. At least we do try to sort of play, once or twice a week. To not only just to play board games, but obviously to spend some time with each other and do all of those things that couples do. But it has meant that we've kind of Laura's almost forced me to play some of the many expansions that I own. So it's been actually quite a good opportunity from that point of view to actually play, as you've mentioned, Rory. I think where you go back to some of the older stuff that you know and love.
Yeah.
And you add a little bit to it. You're like, right, okay, fine. We haven't played this game in a while. Let's see what this is. And you've got an expansion. Of course you have, Andy. Then let's see what it's like with this, and let's see what it's like with that. And it has actually helped in many, many ways to cement the fact in my mind that most expansions are shit and aren't worth the money.
Oh dear!
I know.
Does that mean you're going to stop buying them, Andy?
No, because I might be surprised.
Very willing to be proven wrong.
Yes.
What have we learned?
Nothing at all. Nothing. Like most politicians, I have learned nothing. It's actually weird as a side topic. Laura and I were talking about this on the way to our board game night a couple of weeks ago about, can you actually name, and this was actually inspired by actual LOL, any expansions that you think are actually really, really good?
I can name two. Top of my head. I was thinking about it while you were saying that. Seven Wonders Duel Pantheon and Seven Wonders Duel Agora.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
They're both.
There's a theme here.
They're both fantastic expansions.
I own, I think, something like 130 expansions. It's an insane number. Now, a lot of those are like things like all the expansions for Deep Madness or Cards Against Humanity and stuff, and a fair few for Mansions of Madness. But let's say it's about 100. 100 of my games have been expanded, so a little under half of them. And of all of those, I can genuinely think of about 4 of them that are actually good and worth having. Genuinely.
I think there's going back to like really old school games. There's there's one of the expansions for Pandemic, which adds the mutation, the purple disease. I forget which one that is now.
In the lab.
Is that in the lab?
I think so.
and there's a couple of pandemic expansions which are really
On the
take
Brink
that game up.
and In the Lab. I think I agree with you. They're both really, really good.
Yes, and then State of the Emergency is the less good one, but that's the last one here.
And then
Scoundrels of Skullport for...
Yeah, I concur. That is a mandatory purchase because it makes the game interesting. But I do agree. The expansions for Mansions of Madness are all really, really good because they add a lot more variation for all the maps.
See, I wasn't going to count then because you've got the FFG kind of sprawling chaos game.
I'm counting those as one expansion.
Yeah, because I was going to say for Eldritch Horror, you've got to get the Yig expansion, which is the first one. You almost have to get it to pad out the game enough, but it feels like a bit of a cheat that does because most of the expansions just had one minor mechanic and just loads more scenarios.
Yes,
loads more
exactly
characters.
right. I mean, that's the reason to buy those games, but that's why I lump them together as one expansion rather than 6 or whatever the hell it is.
I'm just looking around my room at the games I've got, and to be controversial because it's going to upset Steve. I think the expansions for Who Goes There Second Edition are necessary purchases as well.
I would also throw in Tuscany for viticulture, which is pretty much mandatory.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I start to struggle, actually. There's a few expansions for Twatty Hadouken which are worth having, but there's a lot of ones in there that are kind of meh. So but anyway, we're slightly off topic, but it's the experience for the pandemic was that I got a lot of expansions played, and we started to learn this stuff about all the games that we'd hadn't actually played properly before I expanded them rather foolishly.
But I think I like you, Andy. If there's a game I really like, I want to get the expansion. I think I've been eyeing up like the Tiny Towns, for example. Tiny Towns has got 2 expansions.
Don't bother.
But I've heard they're not very good. But I still kind of want them. But I'm really, I'm still just enjoying Tiny Towns. It's one of those games that you can just whack down and go, let's play this game, and it's fun and it's engaging for an hour for like 6 people, which is great.
I've played the first expansion. Well, I've got both. I haven't played the second one, but I've got the one that introduces the money. We've both played that, and we're both like, yeah.
I think for me, the biggest problem with expansions is the cost, the cost ratio of here is the base game that cost, I think like Tiny Towns cost maybe like £30-35, and here's the expansion which
27.
costs £27.
Yeah,
but it's
ridiculous.
It's a fraction of the size. In terms of the box size is a fraction of the size, and then the amount of components you get in there are There's 12 pieces in here? That's it?
It'll be a fraction of the print run as well.
Yeah.
True. What is it, you, Steve? It's starters and sweets. That's how you define it.
Starters and search, yeah. You get to most restaurants these days. And I'm about out my date with prices now, but if your main's 10 quid, then you can almost guarantee that dessert's going to be 5 to 6 quid because you're like your main's like this and your pudding's like this. And it's like because that's where they're trying to get all the extra money out of you. That's where they're tempting you with the dessert menu. They're not trying to give you diabetes. That's where they've got the markup on.
Well, that's because it's easier because you've had 2 bottles of wine by that point.
That's fair.
So you're half cut, and then you're ready for a bit of pudding and maybe a dessert wine, and then maybe a whiskey. And then maybe a coffee.
And all of a sudden we know why we find out why Sid spends £200 every time he goes to a restaurant.
Artisanal foods, like I said the other day.
Artisanal food. A couple of bottles of plonk and 6 puddings.
Hey, look at my classy date. I'll tell you one thing, though, I think collectively we do agree on is we don't like board gaming online.
True. It's just not the same.
It just doesn't work, does it?
No.
Which is bizarre, because we can RPG till the cows come home online. But put a board game in front of us online, it just hasn't worked.
I think that might depend on the interface. I think I could quite happily play the Root digital implementation, for example, is fantastic.
I was going to say,
if we all gave each, we all got the game and we all shared out, created an online game of Root using that interface. I would happily play with Root with you guys.
There's a difference, though. I was going to raise this actually, Rory. I do agree with you that I think if there's a board game interface like something like Tabletop Simulator, or you've got a dedicated app for a game, the apps are definitely where you want to play.
Yeah.
Because the computer does the heavy lifting. It has the rules baked in. You don't need to move counters around.
You just have to make your game choices.
Yes,
and then
exactly.
the engine takes care of the rest. That is the only exception to this playing board games online that I would make. If it's a dedicated app, I'm all over it. But if I've got a pick a card from this deck and move the cursor and remember whether it's double click or single click to show everybody or show myself, that I'm not playing.
Agreed. I find it's almost immersion breaking, basically, because when you're playing a physical game, you're on the analog, you're in the tabletop, you've got the immersion of moving the counters around, you're thinking about your game, you've got everything in front of you. You can actually see the entire table. Whereas if you've got Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia, you can only see a sort of small fraction of the play area unless you zoom really far out, which means you can't see anything, which is crap. And then you, as you say, you've got to pick up the counters with the mouse, and you get the button wrong, and the counters go everywhere, and you throw 6 dice across the table, and it takes the counters with you, and it's just annoying.
When we first went into lockdown, I planned to, because I used to play on my lunch break with some guys at work. I was planning to take in Dice Hospital and play that on that Friday. And we went into lockdown, or my company said, right, everybody's going to work from home now. But then Tom and I decided, actually, we're going to still play it. We're going to try it online on Tabletopia. And it was just a ball ache trying to turn a dice 1 pip up. It was that's something that should be so simple. I know where the 3 is, but I've got to turn it and rotate it this way and then that way and this, and then put it back in that. Christ almighty.
Or stacking a deck of cards, or pulling only 1 card out of a massive deck instead of the entire deck across the table. Yeah, it's just little niggles like that really just annoy me.
But I think if you really, there are people that obviously they really get on with this because they've spent the time getting used to that interface.
It is weird how we all hated it, though.
Yeah. I think that was a surprising thing.
Yeah, so many people were talking about how, they were playing all these board games online on Tabletop Simulator and Tabletopia, and, that's how they're getting their board game fix. And all of us went,
Nah.
No. I could be tempted to use something like Tiny Towns, for example. I think I could quite happily maybe try and implement that into something like Roll20. I'm familiar with how Roll20 works. Tiny Towns is quite a simple game. I only need to set up a few counters, and that I think I could do that.
Well, Tiny Towns is one you can actually do without even setting it up. You could all just have the board in front of you because you're playing your own board.
Yeah.
So as long as you know what the community buildings are, that's one you can just do.
We could play that on Zoom, yeah.
Yeah, weirdly, actually, Alora did this with cartographers, with our sort of Thursday board gaming group. This is one thing they did run, was community games like that. So something like cartographers, like Tiny Towns, as you say, Steve, you're kind of just playing your own game. So there's a camera that literally points at the community cards, and somebody then just reads out, this is what you need to do next, and everyone either draws their thing or puts their die down and goes that way. And apparently it worked really well, because you can play things like cartographers with like 15 people, because you just play the solo rules. Everyone works to the same rule set, and away it goes. And apparently it worked quite well.
Actually, last time I played Tiny Towns, I played with 6 people around a big table at the community. Because obviously the community cards, you can't read them. They're quite hard to read upside down. So what people were doing, they were just taking photos of the cards and then had their phone in front of them. So you wouldn't,
that's a good idea.
You wouldn't even, with the community cards, someone gets them out, takes a photo, and you share that image, and there you go, you've got your community cards. That's all the thing you share on Zoom. So yeah, there are ways around it. I would much prefer to do Tiny Towns like that than to try playing Tiny Towns on Tabletopia or Simulator. But yeah, it is weird how we all hate it. We've got time for one more question, do you think, chaps?
Oh, I think we could probably get another one in.
What's this? So this is from same Dave or a different Dave?
This is a different Dave. This was from Spiky Dave.
This is from Spiky Dave.
Or the Dave formerly known as Spiky, which I think is his Twitter handle. He asked, do you think we'll see any flavour of the week mechanics this year? Ooh, it's like a couple of years ago, it was all roll and rights, wasn't it? And then it was all, the card game of the big game, of the dice game of the big game. And
oh, yes.
Right. I'm going to, while Andy's thinking, I'm going to excuse myself from this question, because if I attempted to answer it, I'm going to sound like a hypocrite, because I've just said that I haven't paid attention to anything in the last 2 years.
Well, that's interesting, because the next question we have from Derek is, where do we tend to get our information about upcoming Kickstarter releases? And that's usually Rory. But now he's not been he's been taken leave from looking at from the industry. That's why there's no news.
Well, I get my information from the little ping that appears saying Andy Lewis is back to game. That tends to be where I
Kickstarter
find these
grasses
things
me
out
up, yeah. But do we see any flavour of the week mechanics? To be honest, because I think we've all been slightly detached, I'm not really sure what the mechanics are that could be flavoured of the week.
It's weird because we've never been the follower of those kind of things. Like none of us have jumped on the roll and write bandwagon.
It's because they're shit.
I was about to say, there's been the odd game which uses the mechanics well, but on a whole, it's not been something we've been remotely interested in. I don't know. I was just actually looking, and this is really quite bad. Board and Dice are doing is it Builders of Teotihuacan?
Yes, they are, because they did originally builders or founders of Gloomhaven, didn't they? Or someone did. Anyway.
No. That's something completely different. But I looked at it and went and looked at it. It's the Polyonymous type of thing, and I kind of think to myself, ugh.
I felt the same way. Yes,
I thought we'd done Polyominoes 2 years ago. I thought that was Polyominoes is Tetris pieces basically. Slotting these funny shaped pieces onto a board and scoring points for them. I was like, did we do that 3 years ago with Baron Park and Summer's Garden? I thought we were over that now.
Oh, there's a new Azul out, so maybe that'll be it. Another one. For God's sake,
Another one.
No.
We don't need another one.
No, we didn't need the last two to be. Although I have to admit, Summer Pavilion, I think, is probably the best of the first three.
I'm trying to think. Actually, I don't know of anything that's going to be, flavour of the month. We'll see. The problem is with Roll and Rights. I didn't think Roll and Rights were going to take off.
True.
And we went from like, that is it.
Gan's so clever.
Oh, so clever. Yeah, Gan's so clever, which I've played and went, this is just fancy Yahtzee. It is. It's just fancy Yahtzee. And then all of a sudden, it's like they were coming out of the woodwork for everywhere. Every single company was making loads of them. So I think it's hard to predict because you never quite know what's going to be.
I would like to see. They do seem to be growing in popularity, so maybe they might make a resurge, an appearance, is the branching story arc games. Because we've had things like Stuff Fables in the past. We've obviously had Tainted Grail, we've had Gloomhaven. I imagine Etherfields is probably similar.
I think they're ticking along nicely. I think because you've got, what's the oh God, is it Ryan Lacerda one? Got something Gods?
Sleeping Gods.
Sleeping Gods.
Sleeping Gods. You've got.
Oh, there's the King's Will as well. Not the King's Will, the King's Dilemma. That's a branching story as well. It's a different mechanic, but it's actually bloody good if you've not played it. I played that a couple of months ago with the boys in Worcester, and that's really good, the King's Dilemma. But that's another branching story game, and it's very much based on the player's actions as well.
I think that's one that ticks over nicely because there's a lot of work required for that.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah, they're not something you just knock out quick.
True. I mean, Stuff Fables is a very light version of it, so I wonder if we're going to see a few more of those, because, I mean, there was, Comanauts as well that they followed it up with. I've not played it,
but they were like a few years back.
They were, I know. But as I say, I wonder. This is an aspiration of mine because I personally like that kind of game. But it'd be nice to see a few more of those. Maybe obviously not on the scale of something like Tainted Grail because it's massive and very expensive. But something like Stuff Fables, which is closer to the sort of £50 mark, that still has branching stories.
Can a game like that requires that amount of effort, that amount of thought, that amount of complexity, ever be a flavour of the week? Because you'd have to have 20 or 30 different developers all at the same point in their time go, oh yeah, let's do one of those, and then suddenly drop them all at the same time.
I think the biggest drawback, I think, is as Steve says, is the fact that it takes an enormous amount of effort to actually develop it. Whereas something like a Roll and Write, you can probably knock out in 6 months.
If that.
Or, relatively speaking, you know.
So I think some of them were knocked out in 6 days.
Wow. You're probably right.
Anyway, I think we'd really draw us to a close now.
Yeah.
We are ending our normal time. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We have been Polyhedra and Collider. If you liked us, please give us a review on your podcast platform of choice and share us with your friends. If you want to chat to us or speak to us at all, send us some more questions for next episode. Actually, send us some questions. We're really short questions. You can send them on Facebook, Twitter, the Board Game Geek Guild 2726, or just go to polyhedroncollider.com and use the email link on the top of that page. Until next time, happy gaming.
Ta-ra.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.